What's up, everybody? Want to welcome you into the podcast. It's the first time that we've tried this with Master Dr. Jake.
Episode 1.
In the house. So moving forward, this is something that maybe we're kind of hoping that we can build off of and get you guys some cool information. Also gives us a longer format kind of way of talking to you guys about topics that you're interested in. And I can pick this guy's brain because he's the master, the doctor.
I'm the doctor, he's the master.
The Dr. Jake. So without any further ado, this is Resisting Misinformation with Dr. Jake, episode 1.
Episode 1.
What's on the agenda for today?
We're talking about cardio, calories, and commitment. And some misinformation that's kind of spread out there. We're just going to kind of not specifically set it right, but kind of give our 2 cents on the topic, kind of say what we would like people to come from or what we personally come from in those areas. Not to say what you're doing is wrong, but you can always learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool because I think there's like in news today, it doesn't really matter what you're talking about. There's like a lot of misconception, misdirection, misinformation that floats around. And so it can be very hard to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do, especially with regards to your health? It's like, am I doing this right? There's a lot of these ultimatums that are in place. Like if you're not doing it this way, like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of polarity in the industry and all that. And a lot of people like to learn something, see that it works, stick to it, and then spread that. And I mean, hey, cool, if it works for you, it works for you. But sometimes it doesn't work for someone else. So it's good to know multiple ways to come about any kind of problem. I mean, even in the real world with anything, knowing how to come at the problem from multiple directions.
I dig it. And mostly because they've seen your videos and stuff like that. They kind of already know who you are, but just it's nice because in the podcast form, you can introduce yourself and kind of go through, some of what you're about. So probably a good time. It's like before you're just like tuning into this, you're like, who the hell are these guys? True. You want to just go background a little bit? Yeah. Just tell the people who you is?
Let's go background. So my name is Dr. Jake. As you can see from the channel, I'm the guy holding the carrot and the dumbbell in the video or the picture of the channel. I am a doctor of physical therapy, currently practicing as a travel physical therapist around the country of the United States of America. My background is mostly athletic. I did my bachelor's in Virginia, and then I did my doctorate here in Virginia as well. I've been an athlete my whole life, soccer, taekwondo, dancing, pretty much anything you can name. I've never played football, though, so don't ask me anything about my football teams. Master Matt here knows I don't know anything about anything when it comes to sports you watch on TV. I just like to play them, so that's kind of that. And my passions are really just trying to feel better, feel stronger, travel the world as much as I can, be financially stable, and come about it in a way that I'm not sacrificing anything in the terms of longevity or health to be able to improve my strength or aesthetics.
Yeah, man. Wow, that was really good.
Right off the top.
That's a hard act to follow, dude.
That's our mission statement right there.
Yeah, man. Oh, God, I hate talking about myself, too. But quick aside before I do this random introduction, it's like... So we got a chance to meet when we were working at the clinic, and that was one of the things that was always like really impressive to me. Is like everything that Dr. Jake has always like put his mind to, he's been able to accomplish. Whether it's like taekwondo or ballroom dancing, there's like this whole variety of things that you've tried and endeavored to do in your life. And I think with just really supreme stick-to-itiveness and just focus, you've been able to do that. And so I've really taken that to heart, and I've seen that firsthand. So if you're thinking like, oh my gosh, well, this is a YouTube channel, like who is this dude? I know you don't know me either. I'll tell you about me in a second, but just take it from me, somebody that actually knows this guy. It's just really incredible to see, and I think that there's a lot of good information you can glean from that kind of resilience and fortitude and just outlook on life.
Yeah, I appreciate all the compliments, but
yeah, man.
Same with this dude, man. The reason that we were drawn to each other and became friends really quickly is, this guy, he's like, I want to lose weight. And then for the next like freaking 3 months, he's steaming chicken breast and broccoli, and that's like all he eats. So I saw the dedication, I saw the knowledge base, and we just kicked it off from there, so...
I still remember the steamed chicken breast.
Yeah.
I found out that there's less intensive ways to cook chicken
put
breast.
Some hot sauce on that shit. Jeez.
I put a little hot sauce on it. Yeah, that was the extreme. But yeah, that's how we met at the clinic. So, but anyways, yes, team chicken breast. So if you ever get a chance, try it out. It's the cleanup sucks. But yeah, so for me, my name is Matt Shaw. I am. Where do we start? It's always like, what do I want to talk about? I've been an LPTA for 15 years. got into it, got through college, did more surfing than I did actually going to school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Both my parents were PTs rather. And then so we figured, well, that's probably a good place to start, right? So we had a family business, went to PTA school, finished there, did very well, came and worked in a family practice environment for a long time, did some traveling. During that time, I went to massage therapy school. So I worked down in Florida, worked with the U.S. swim and dive team and the Florida State football team doing like structural integration, myofascial release, things like this. So a lot of hands-on work that was fascinating to me at the time. Traveled around, came back, like you, kind of got, we're always itching for the next thing. So it's like got kind of bored, ended up getting a bachelor's in alternative and complementary medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, things like this. And then got bored again. Pretty much.
It happens to us.
Academia is just the prospect of just like achieving something and then sort of getting bored again and then trying to like do something later on. So then I went back for business, got my MBA, and that's when we started sort of devising like, hey, well, we could probably do this and figure something out. So that's where this came about. And then right now, as currently, I'm a professor of health sciences at a local university here. So doing a bit of teaching, and yeah, that's it. Is that it?
That sounded pretty freaking good to me.
Thanks, bro.
At this point, I'm trusting you more than I'm trusting me.
I just made it all up.
But yeah, that's interesting background. You can kind of tell. There's ambition in the activities we do, but there's also ambition in the knowledge base that we have. And it's like, once you finish a degree, you kind of practice in it and you see what it is. You start getting interested in the next thing. And it's like, it's like what I can't even think of a way to describe it. It's like, you got to have the next best thing. But when it comes to knowledge, that's what we're about.
Yeah.
And so that leaves, a lot of studying, but you're always interested in it. And then you learn about it, you practice in it, you do the next thing, and now you know a bunch of stuff. And we're just trying to figure out a way with this channel and with this podcast to share some of the crap we've been jamming in our brains the last 20 years. And hopefully it sticks and enough people listen that we're not just wasting our time. But I think,
it's okay too.
I think even if 5 people listen, that's more than... that's more people listening than we're sitting in this room by ourselves talking to each other. So there you go.
Amen, brother. I couldn't have said that any better than myself. And it's kind of cool because I think, you go through the backgrounds and it's procedural and stuff like that. But hopefully one thing that you'll see through Master Jake, your videos, and then just the discussions we'll have podcast-wise, things like that, and this sort of segues into what we're going to talk about, which is misinformation. And one thing that I always kind of seen with YouTube, especially a lot of the YouTubers that have a lot of traction, part of the reason that we've created all these accolades, like, at some point the degrees are pieces of paper and things like that. And they're all sort of a linear progression of what should be maybe just your passion for learning and trying to explore in a more deep way, like some degree of study, some field of study. Mm-hmm. And so for both you and I, that kind of took us down the health sciences way. And we were just actually, just viscerally interested in what we were trying to do. But what you will see on YouTube, for better, worse, and different, are people that maybe don't have as much experience or can be a bit too myopic in their view of certain things. And you do have to be aware that there are also people who maybe aren't as credentialed for certain to at least be talking about certain subjects in certain ways.
Oh yeah. In this time of influencers, like someone is way more likely to listen to a 16-year-old that has 2 million subscribers talk about health and fitness than a doctor talk about it that has 10,000 subscribers or 500 subscribers, or like us, at the making of this, less than 200 subscribers. So
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
But
somehow your subscribership has become your like the metric that warrants your expertise to some degree. And they just assume that because there's that many people listening to you that you actually know what you're talking about. And that assumption may not be always correct. Also, not to say that, not to downtrodden on anybody. No. It's like everybody's out there doing their thing. And
definitely. And if what you're doing works and you have experience in it, even if you're not formally educated in it, like we already know, you can have a freaking damn good YouTube degree just watching YouTube 3 hours a day. You can learn a second language, then start teaching people languages. You never have to go to college for it anymore. But it's really if you're willing to put in the work and then jump out into the deep end and say, let's see if I can make a living off of this without having to get that degree and get that piece of paper.
Yeah, man. And that seems like, perfect segue into the sort of the topical content of the first episode, which is just going along, looking at misinformation, trying to track some of the more common examples of misinformation. I think our thing kind of went off a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So but yeah, it's important, I think, to always, especially today, take with a grain of salt things that you hear about. It could be health, fitness, wellness, life, whatever. But I think even us, right? Even as you're watching this, you should have a healthy skepticism of like, all right, well, it sounds like they have credentials. They seem like they're okay. And hopefully the idea will be as you grow and continue to grow with us and get more familiar with Master Dr. Jake on his channel, you're like, okay, I believe it. And the one thing I really do like about your platform is the research is there to back it up. So most of what you'll see on his videos will be a video supported by a litany of research.
Try to put in some of the papers that I've read and stuff like that, just to kind of give you an idea. And a lot of people don't know this, but if someone posts a research paper and it's like a meta-analysis or some kind of criteria review, usually it is also coming off the back of a bunch of other research. So if you go down into the anecdotes, or you go down into the freaking bibliography, the references, they didn't just give you one paper to read. They gave you like freaking 40 to 200 papers to read. So you can scroll through all that. But not to say, there are a lot of YouTubers out there that are even more credentialed than us.
100%.
But it's just coming at it in different ways. So I think with that, let's get on to the first topic here.
I'm down, man. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about in terms of misinformation, there's sort of a moniker out there, this idea that leaner is always better, right?
Yeah, especially in the age of aesthetics, social media, that people think leaner is healthier, leaner is better, and obviously not skinnier. So there's a difference between being skinnier and being leaner, right?
Yeah. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because when you're talking about health and I'm sure you have because you've worn all those hats, right? So there's sort of a physique hat, a strength training hat, powerlifting kind of hat. A lot of it now, whether it's social media or things like this, there is this hyper focus on aesthetics, where it's you've got to have the 6-pack abs, you've got to be down to 8% body fat, you've got to sort of live in this world of like what we consider to be like physique modeling kind of stuff, which in itself isn't always the healthiest, right?
Definitely not the healthiest. And these people know it's not the healthiest. And a lot of the times these people aren't even in that mode for as long as you think. It's very rare for someone to be sub 10% body fat year round. But if you go through the effort of getting less than 10% body fat, then you're going to take a whole bunch of videos, a whole bunch of pictures, and then, schedule them out throughout the year. It kind of might seem like I'm a little, hypocritical, because that's kind of, I'm looking for a good, aesthetic look, especially with social media. You have to be able to advertise your stuff. But my main goal isn't to just be as lean as I can. My main goal is to be aesthetic, be lean, and be healthy at the same time, and be able to do it in a way that I can maintain. Like when I was younger and I was doing Taekwondo, like hours and hours every day, and I was doing training camps in the summer, like 13 hours a day, they had me on like 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day.
Oh my God.
And I weighed 120 pounds, right?
Holy crap.
I had abs. I weighed 120. I was eating like 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day. I was working out, and it wasn't hard for me to maintain. Like, I think I was 9% body fat at that time.
Damn. Okay.
Now, to get to 9% body fat, I'd have to make some sacrifices, right? Because I'm not running around, 3 hours plus a day, 12 hours a day in these training camps. So you need to be able to find a body fat percentage. And my suggestion is for men under 18%, for women under 25%. But there's always differences. Some people, they feel the best at 22% and they're a man. Some girls feel good at 30. But if you're really trying to hit a good mix of feeling good, being strong, being healthy, being able to perform athletically, your cardiovascular system being healthy, and you actually looking good at the same time, I think those ranges are pretty good.
Yeah, and you talk about something interesting too, because I think you look at misinformation, the context that it gets used in is mostly like almost like intentionally misleading sort of facts, skewing facts, figures, fudging numbers, things like this. But there is this sort of it can be a bit more aesthetic than that in terms of like what you said, where it's you see these people, actor, model, Instagram, whoever, and they look great. And the implication is that they look like this all the time, right? Mm-hmm. But the truth is they do like a water cut for like, X number of days. They get down to basically where they're essentially just completely dehydrated. And then they take a bunch of pictures, they shoot some video, and they're like, look at me, I look great.
Yep.
And this is what we sort of approximate ourselves to. It's like, why don't I look like that? Well, it's not sustainable. Yeah.
You can't look like that all the time. And I mean, even in my experience, so I did a water cut for one of my powerlifting competitions, and I got first place in that competition. Everyone does stuff like this, especially when you start get competitive and you're in the national level and stuff. But I lost 16 pounds in 4 days, and most people, they're going to look at me at the end of that and be like, dang, how did he looks great. How is he this strong? Blah, 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 blah. But these people who are lifting, like, let's say I was squatting 450 pounds at 145 pounds body weight, right? I don't walk around at 145 pounds just being able to squat 450 or whatever, right? I was like 165, 160, like 4 days before that, right? So that was a way to manipulate, and people do this all the time. It's totally legal in competition. But you're not going to be looking at these people thinking, oh, I weigh 145. How come my squat isn't 450, right? You need the bulk to 165 before you start thinking about stuff like that, or not specifically, but in my situation, right?
Yeah, man. It's just, those sorts of variables are things that you have to consider. And that's kind of what you want to shed some light into based on like your expertise and what you've gone through, is that what you see as it appears may not actually be the true story. And the other side of it too is speaking to like directly to like our experiences. You want to start to reshape your thought and how you feel about fitness, wellness, and you do a lot of this with the channel, right? Where you're trying to sort of move away from, aesthetics are one part of that, but a bigger part is feeling good holistically about how you are mentally, emotionally, physically, obviously, even spiritually to some extent. And then a big part of it that you talk a lot about is like the longevity of it. So it's not just being fit for a small period of time, it's trying to cultivate a lifelong level of fitness,
fit for life, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard because your short-term manifestation of health might be aesthetics, it might be performance, it might be, how you feel, and then the long-term manifestation is the longevity, right? So the end goal is the longevity. If you live to be, older and you're healthy in that age, so not in a wheelchair at 70, you're actually running marathons at 85 or whatever, then you did something right, unless you're just a genetic outlier.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your long-term manifestation. And something that bothers me a lot when it comes to like, social media influence and stuff, talking about how it's easy to maintain a low body fat, easy to maintain, a certain amount of exercise a day, certain type of diet, is a lot of these times, and I've had a lot of conversations with these YouTubers about this, a lot of the times these people are living off of YouTube or living off of like working from home and doing all these things. And they're like, yo, it's really not that hard to maintain a low body fat, eat healthy, exercise 3 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, bro, you don't have a 9 to 5. Exactly. And nowadays it's a 9 to 6. So whoever's out there, I don't know when that happened. People out here working 8 to 7 nowadays, stuff like that. But
they snuck it in on us.
Yeah, I'm like, I got to wake up at like 5, hit the gym, make breakfast, make lunch, take shower, like do stuff, go work all freaking day, eat my lunch, get off. And it's really... You get to a point where you have to make some compromises. And do you want to be 7% body fat walking around hating your life? Probably not.
That's true. And that you're exactly right. Like that is the disparity, is like really what you're trying to do is cultivate like a very healthy system of living. And so what you're seeing is like, well, how did, what's his nose get so jacked for Thor? It's like, well, dude, man's got a chef that cooks for him every single meal. He's working out 3 hours a day. It's like he has a CGI lifestyle that's built, or CGI helps too, right? He's got a lifestyle that's built around, because a large part of his job is maintaining that physique, where most of us are clocking in, clocking out, trying to do what we need to do to pay the bills, keep the lights on and all this. So you don't have the availability or the time or sometimes even the energy to be able to support that long term. And it is funny because then you see it inevitably, like in the tabloids, it's like, Chris Hemsworth got fat, and then they have some unflattering picture of him. And it's like, even those guys after a while, they got to let it go. They don't want to be like that all the time.
Oh, yeah. And, they still have to, especially someone like Thor or whatever, he still has to go on a bulk. He's definitely not doing it natural. Which we're aspiring to be doing, right?
Yes.
And it's because that's what their job entails, and they've decided it's worth it for the success that they want in their life, and I'm not trying to hit on that or whatever. Come on and watch my videos, Hemsworth, But
come on, Thor.
We were talking about being healthy, being strong, living long, not doing steroids, being natural. This channel talks about supplements, whether you should take them or not, depending on things. And it's all just my opinion, but that's what I've been looking at,
Yeah, and that just seems like a really sort of great way to mold this for, hopefully with this channel, and I think one of the influences of the channel is like for lack of better words, for like the average person, it's just like for somebody that just wants to have very, you can have the whole spectrum. Like you can say you've got enough input and insight to be able to carry someone to, and I've seen you do this, lose 50, 60 pounds, like achieve their goals, doing very simple things. You've created sport specific regimens for people that are wanting to operate at a high level, like what you did with Taekwondo or ballroom dancing or whatever. And then it goes all the way down to, it's like it's like severely overweight. I don't know where to start. I just want to feel better.
Oh yeah.
So living within that realm, it's nice because it covers the whole gamut of everything instead of just trying to be so specific and saying, well, if you're not doing this, you're not taking steroids, you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. That doesn't apply to the average person.
Definitely not. And I think it's good to just make some ranges. Like body fat, if you're a man, anywhere from like 12 to 25 is probably okay. But I always say 12 to 18. You can go leaner than that, but it's going to be difficult to maintain other aspects of your life, like your strength, like your performance. And you can go higher than that, but then your aesthetics starts going down, your performance goes down, your feeling. So that range is good. Obviously, find your own. And then same thing with strength. So people try to put out things for strength, like, okay, you should be able to bench 1 time your body weight, 1.5, squat 1.5, deadlift 2 times. I think those are good numbers, but it's where you are. So right now you're weighing 400 pounds. You're not deadlifting 800, bro. And unless you're doing some stuff we don't agree with on this channel.
Straight up. Oh man. And I think that's good. Like to sort of just to put a bow on this thing, the idea behind a lot of the misinformation behind some of these concepts of fitness are deviations from what I believe to be the standard achievable norm for most people, right? Mm-hmm. So in topic and context and in the things that you're talking about in your videos, it just tends to be more hyper-focused on what's attainable, what's sustainable, and is incrementally focused to the point where like it's not like, okay, overnight I need to lose 100 pounds.
Yeah,
it's like these are small, doable gains that almost anyone can do. And I think that's when you work in healthcare and you see that sort of thing, you notice that tends to be the majority of who you're talking to.
Definitely.
And so, losing weight, that's the big thing. I mean, in your experience, especially as like a personal trainer, would you say like trying to trim up is like the ideal goal for most people? It's like they want to get off those extra pounds. They want to start to just lean up a little bit. So
I'd probably say, maybe like 80% of my clientele when I was a personal trainer was trying to lose body fat. The other 10% maybe was trying to get stronger, and then 10% was trying to do something specifically sports related, performance related, cardiovascular related, get their mile time down, just because they were like, I remember in 8th grade, I used to run the mile at 6.5 minutes. And I want to do that again. So it's like random stuff like that. Man, I had one guy, 75-year-old guy, like was barely able to walk outside. His passion was gardening. He wasn't able to garden because he was too weak, right? Jeez. And so he came into the gym, hired me as a personal trainer, which was cool. And I see people like this more often now as a physical therapist, but back then it was kind of rare to get someone that age trying to, and his goal was to get back to gardening. But he was so committed that I gave him a workout plan. We went through it. 2 weeks in, he starts showing up an hour early to jump on the elliptical. And I'm like, all right, just don't wear yourself out. Yeah. A few weeks later, he stays an hour after to get back on the elliptical. He liked the elliptical. His knees wouldn't let him do anything else, right?
Yeah.
So a couple months in, he's like, I signed up for my first marathon, right? So 75 years old, he went from, I just want to be able to garden to, I'm running a marathon, dude. And I was like, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And he got leaner, he got healthier. And it was nice because his goal wasn't to run a marathon. So at any point, he wasn't overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
But he just, with little steps every day, I saw him like 3 days a week. He built up to a place where he was like, man, gardening is easy. What else can I do? I've never run a marathon. And he's 75, right?
That is awesome.
And that leads into our next thing very well, right?
Yeah.
So this next piece of misinformation is high intensity interval training or HIIT cardio is the best type of cardio. And people like to say for a few different reasons. A, it improves your cardiovascular health more because it's higher intensity. B, it's easier to do because it's higher intensity, but it's for lower amounts of time, so you can get through it. C, it's mentally easier because it's lower amounts of time. D, you burn more calories afterwards with your post-exercise, oxygen consumption.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. But I do not agree, and I have some things about that. Actually, another argument is that it's a hormetic stressor, which I don't necessarily agree with either, and we can talk about that. You might know about hormetic stressors with your cool, holistic medicine background.
A bit, and that's a good take too, because and I was actually going to ask you about this because you do see this, that HIIT gets thrown around as being the sort of preeminent form of cardio for a lot of those reasons, and then some. So what are the things just in your experience and your feeling that you like about HIIT, and then what are the things that sort of detract you from thinking that's like the end all be all of cardio?
So something I like about HIIT is when it is an athlete I'm working with. So if they have to be explosive, they have to be able to hit high velocities for a small amount of time, if they have to have a higher pace, or if they're working toward a specific pace, like the guy I mentioned earlier that wants to get his mile time down, you're going to want to do some high intensity interval training so he can get used to running that faster pace. And that'll keep going up and up and up, like fartlek training and stuff like that, where you run like a certain amount of time faster than you run some slower. Like classic Bruce Lee, where he would jog for a minute, walk for a minute, jog for a minute, walk for a minute, like sprint for a minute, jog for a minute, stuff like that, right? Yeah. I like it for athletes. I like it for people that, that's the only thing. I like it for athletes. If you're not specifically trying to get faster, then for a specific purpose, then I think you should do something else, like low intensity, steady state, sports specific training, which you could do high intensity with. But even then, same thing. If you like biking and you're not going to be competing for time, there's no reason to do high intensity interval training on the bike, right?
Yeah.
If you're not trying to lower your VO2 max for a specific purpose, I mean, there are benefits to lowering your VO2 max in general as you get healthier, but steady state interval, like steady state training over time will get you there also. So athletes.
That's, and it's interesting because I think at least when I see like HIIT training, you talk about just sort of the time crunch and being able to compartmentalize that time for people who are maybe not as able to spend as much time in the gym.
That's a good point too.
But the one thing you do mostly see it approximated with is that it's like, I've seen something touted as like HIIT is like the fat burning, like the optimal fat burning form of cardio.
It's funny because if you got educated in exercise, it's the opposite. And there's a carb to fat ratio, graph that gets tossed around all the time. And people say, high intensity interval training is the best for fat burning because you can burn more calories in a small amount of time. But the thing is, your injury risk goes up. You don't recover as well if you're also resistance training, if you're also doing something else. It's harder in some areas to be able to do it in a way that actually works well. So like biking, if you're biking out in public on the roads, I mean, you could hit some intervals, but it's not super accurate and you might burn out and all this stuff. You have to eat more calories, stuff like this. But pretty much, yeah. So low intensity steady state has more research behind it for actually targeting fat instead of glycogen, instead of carbohydrate stores and all this stuff, which is good because then you get to eat less sugar and you get to burn more fat. So
it seems to make sense to me. And I think it sort of hits on a concept that, we're probably going to sound like a broken record coming back to, but so much of this is mostly about sustainability, finding something that works for you. But also not necessarily the misinformation part of it, but you should always, like, I see this in almost anything, and this is always like a red flag for me. It's like anytime you see ultimatums in anything, right, there's only one way to do this. This is the only way. It's like, if there's only one way to do something, you should be a little concerned.
Yeah, they're trying to sell you something. That's what's going on.
Just wait for the sell. Wait for the ad to pop up because it's coming.
After this, you can buy my low intensity steady state cardio books right now.
I can think of a few that I've seen pop up on my screen. A few that shall remain nameless. But they sort of package these things very nicely, and they start to convince you that this is the optimal way to do it, and it's the only way. And if you've been doing it any other way, you're completely wrong. And that really sells their narrative, which eventually will sell their product, their book, their whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to be wary of that. HIIT has its uses, seems like.
Oh, yeah. Athletically, time saving, stuff like that. But you have to look at it from a multifactorial standpoint. HIIT's not the best form of cardio. Like it might be the best for you at this certain point in time.
Sure.
But you don't have to do HIIT to lose weight. You don't have to do HIIT to improve your cardiovascular system. You don't have to do HIIT to strengthen your knees, all these different things.
Yeah. And it's funny because, when you see like things thrown around like the best, the best form of cardio is whatever you can do that's sustainable for you, that lessens your chance of injury, that, I don't know, you enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. We're all out here feeling hardcore for doing stuff we don't like doing, but who are we really fooling,
Yeah, well, if you're not loving doing what you're doing, maybe tweak it a little bit. You have to get that passion behind it, and that's just as much emotional, I think, and mental as it is physical. So, all right, HIIT. See, so a lot of that stuff I never knew. I just kind of like see stuff online, so I'm just as vulnerable to it. I'm like, oh yeah, HIIT cardio. In fact, I've done some HIIT cardio, and it doesn't bother me, but
I've done some. I did some the other day, literally only because I didn't have enough time to burn the amount of calories I wanted to burn for my steady state. So I was like, I only have 20 minutes, but to hit the amount of calories I need to do 40 minutes. So I'm just going to throw in some jogs and try to hit that number sooner. And that's fine, especially because I had already done legs. So I didn't have to do legs tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I had to squat, 405 for 3 sets of 3 tomorrow, I'm not going to be sprinting on an incline the day before, So you got to think about a bunch of different things. But
that's a good point. And just to kind of wrap this topic up too, like I'll just throw this out there. I've seen you develop weight loss programs for people. And one of the things I really, really like is that you don't put the emphasis on things like HIIT. You put the emphasis on just steps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the last couple of years, I've been on this huge like cardio. The only thing you need to track with cardio is your steps, right? So, and that doesn't work if all your cardio is biking. So you'd have to track your caloric deficit and stuff like that. But I've had a lot of success working with people where the only cardio they ever did was just walking around, and they can buy a $20 fit tracker from Amazon or something, track their steps, and that's it. I start them at a certain step number, and over the weeks I just upped that, and that's all they did for cardio. It worked amazingly.
Yeah, and I've seen the proof of this, and I'm sure you're gonna a segment of like sort of talking about and exhibiting like some of these people that you've worked with is sort of a case study thing.
Yeah, I've got some transformations in the works.
You guys got to see these.
Yeah, they're gonna be awesome. But first, I want to do it in a way that gives justice to what happened. Right. So I want you to see how amazing the transformation was for this person. I want the pictures to be good. I want them to be okay with it before I put any of this out.
Yeah, and I peeked behind the curtain on this, and like definitely stay tuned on this, because some of the things that you've done with some of those clients it's pretty unbelievable. It's been life-changing for them. I mean, talking to them, you could tell. I met one of them, and it's just like, whoa. I saw pictures of him before. I was like, oh my God, who is this person?
And for that person, they've been down to that body weight a couple times before, but they were never able to maintain it.
Yeah.
Now they haven't gained a pound in 3 months, and they're back to eating what they were eating before, right? So they're over 60 pounds lighter, eating the same that they were eating when they were 60 pounds heavier, and they're maintaining their weight. Yes. And that's what I wanted to do with them, right? That was the goal.
That's the name of the game, and that's why I like it. And it sort of rolls into our next topic here too, thinking about it, which is in order to have that level of sustainability and to make sure that you stay on a plateau of wellness that's going to last you over a prolonged period of time, hopefully your entire life, you're trying to manipulate not just the physical aspects of your well-being, but also the mental, the emotional, and there are some forms of kind of diet or exercise philosophy or whatever that some people sort of harp on and say, again, you hear these words like, this is the best way to do it. This is the only way to do it. So you had one thing that in particular that you were going to talk about.
So when it comes to transformation and consistency, your mental health is more important, right? Yeah. So if you're mentally into it, you can do things that are difficult for a longer period of time. So I wanted to talk about the fact that I used to be a big supporter of if it fits your macros, and now I am not a supporter of it at all for a bunch of different reasons, but I'm not trying to say if it works for you, don't do it, right?
Right.
If it works for me, sometimes it works for me. If I'm at the beginning of a diet phase, it works for me. But the further in I get, the closer to my goal I get, I just need to cut some stuff out, whether I want to or not, because it's psychological, right? It's physiological too. Like your body craves these things, and it's like if you've been keeping them in your diet this whole time, then it's hard to just the last 3 weeks give them up. I mean, maybe you can because it's only 3 weeks left, but let's say you're in a longer diet phase because you started at 300 pounds and your goal is 140, which would be crazy. Let's say 160. But let's see what I got. I wrote down a couple little things here, so we got to keep it flowing.
Oh yeah. It's funny because maybe even just go through it with me because I wasn't really familiar with the acronym for me. Like what is the concept? So if it fits your macro goals, then you're good. Yeah. Is that what this is? Or
yes. So the whole thing is let's say you have a calorie count, 2,000 calories a day, and you have a protein goal, 200 grams of protein. Let's just say 200. If it fits your macros is as long as you hit your protein goal and as long as you don't go above your calorie goal, you can eat whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Oh, interesting.
You could have 4 protein shakes and 19 donuts, and that would be your day. And the reason that it was so popular is because calories are what matter with weight loss, right? Yeah. So you will still lose weight. I mean, there's the Twinkie guy, the McDonald's guy, the guy who ate whatever he wanted, whatever. And you'll lose weight, but is it healthy? So now we're looking at it. Boom.
We're back.
All right, our camera freaking overheated, so we're back in here.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's how you know it's the first crack at this. It's like sometimes you're gonna have technical difficulties, but we adapt when we overcome.
Yep.
And yeah, that's the ding of success.
So what were we talking about? If it fits your macros?
If it fits your macros, and I was asking you what the heck that actually even means.
Yeah. I think I finished describing it if I remember properly.
I believe you did. Yes.
But stay under your calories. Stay at your protein or higher. I don't necessarily agree with that for a few reasons. I mean, you're going to see the weight loss, but it's not focusing on actual health, physiologic health, stuff like that. So you could totally pile up on the sugar and protein and that's it. But I think to be healthy, you need to be looking at your sources also. So then, you get into that whole argument. It's like, all right, you start at if it fits your macros until you feel like you can control that. And then you start making healthier choices. And that leads eventually to the optimal diet, which, everyone has their own opinion on.
Sure. And, it's like these one size fits all sort of things where you see it in dietary stuff all the time where it's like Atkins or paleo or whatever. Mm. And that's probably a topic for another day that could be very interesting.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things that you sort of see is like just focusing on macros alone is a very like all-encompassing way of thinking about eating. And like you said, if you're looking at caloric deficit alone, then I can see the appeal. But one thing you do want to, like you mentioned, Twinkie Man and like McDonald's guy.
Yep.
That's not like maybe the best form of trying to get like, you don't want to exclude considering like those micronutrient components of that and delving a little bit deeper into just the aspects of your health that extend just below the surface level of how many carbs am I eating, how much protein am I eating, how many fats.
Yep.
So it's a nice building block concept. Mm-hmm. But obviously, if you're eating nothing but Twinkies all day, calorically that's great, but you're probably missing, I don't know, things like vitamin C.
I mean, and that guy specifically was missing protein. He wasn't going for that. But I mean, when I work with people and I put out a video that talks about my basic approach to fat loss, stuff like that. They got their calories, and I like to come at it really simple also. So don't go above these calories. Don't go below this protein. Try to keep your fat at around this level for hormonal function, all that kind of stuff. I give them a range. The rest is carbs. And then from there, they do that for a while. I don't look at what their choices are. After a few weeks, they're seeing some success. We start talking about their food choices, right? So there can be some food choices that are causing them to have cravings. And it's funny because it's like people think, oh, I'm having these cravings because of a lack of this food. But it's really you're having a cravings because you've been eating that food too much, right? Yeah. So if you have a donut every day and then you have a day where you don't have a donut, you're going to want a donut.
Got the itch.
If you haven't had a donut in 3 years, you're not going to want a freaking donut.
That's a good point.
What are the chances you're going to want a donut tomorrow if you've been having one every day for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
High,
Yes.
So it's like that. So there's that beginning phase where there is going to be a point where if you've been eating donuts every day, you're going to hit a point where I've been eating donuts every day and I need to stop, and you're going to have those cravings.
Yeah.
My thing with if it fits your macros is they're saying it's okay to eat a donut every day as long as it's in your macros. And I think that kind of spirals. It's like a gateway drug to eating unhealthy and thinking you're eating healthy, because there's a difference between losing weight and being healthy.
That's true. And you've just nailed the exact distinction that I think you have to keep in mind. And so, like you said, it could be a good platform to start off someone's weight loss goals by simplifying the components of any dietary, plan, and making it in a way that's sort of understandable. But then kind of like what you were talking about with your marathon runner guy, it's sort of like, well, his goal initially was just to garden again. And then once he sort of got hooked on gardening again, it was like, well, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So it should be this, like what you're saying with your clients sometimes is like, okay, well, let's start you out with the easiest sort of first stepping stone. And then you kind of get the results from that. And then you're feeling good. And it almost, exercise and diet's one of those things where if you dedicate yourself to it, it becomes self-perpetuating, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're feeling better, looking better. And before you know it, you don't even really have to try and go to the gym. It's just like your body wants it. It's sort of like, yeah, give me more of that. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I go through phases where I'm hitting the gym for a long time, and I'm like, I feel like I need a break. So I'm like, next week is deload week. I'm either sometimes I just don't do anything. I don't go to the gym at all. I'll just walk around. It's like an active recovery week almost, where I just do a little bit more cardio, but I do no lifting. And halfway through that week, man, I want to get a squat bar on my back.
Yeah.
Like I want to pick up something heavy. And, the voices start telling you, hey, man, you finally got your deadlift up to like 500 something. Like you skip a week, you're going to come back and 485 is going to feel heavy. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's not like I got any weaker. It's a nervous system thing. We can get into that in a different video also, but. That's
interesting. Yeah. You get the itch. You get the itch for sure. And I think that cultivating that feeling and sort of encompassing whether we're talking about HIIT cardio, whether you're talking about cardio, whether you're talking about different ways of approaching your diet, whether you're considering like what you want your body type to be. Should I be lean? Should I be? Eventually, I think I found this too. I don't know if your body will start to inform you what it likes and what it doesn't like. Mm-hmm. And maybe the bigger thing is really just creating that connection with yourself and having that inner dialogue, that communication, and having that line open so that you can kind of figure out where, what works best for you and then focus on those things rather than trying to tune into what somebody else is trying to tell you or sell you or things like that. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think every single individual topic, subtopic of this could be a whole video on its own.
True.
Like just food choices could be obviously, you can write a whole novel on just food choices.
Yeah.
Like what caloric intake you should be taking and how you should track it throughout a weight loss. That's a whole book right there. So like we're just saying very general things that probably everyone's like, yeah, I already freaking heard this. Why am I listening to this hour-long podcast about this? But sometimes repetition is good. Sometimes hearing it from someone different is good. Sometimes having some sound on in the background while you're doing dishes is good. Listen to Matt's soothing voice over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. But yeah, I think that's pretty much, that's it. That's what we were talking about today.
Yeah. And, for a first crack at it, I think it's pretty good. And hopefully that was, it's informative to people. And yeah, a lot of this does tend to be broad strokes, I think. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, from a beginning stage, it's good to sort of just start to paint the canvas broadly with certain things. And then also it sort of invites, hopefully if there's good engagement, things like that, feel free to reach out to, Dr. Jake and just say, hey, I'd love to hear about this. Eventually this is going to be user perpetuated to some degree, right? So you'll have people who comment and I'd love to hear about this. And then
suggestions, check our Instagram out, like suggest things there. You can direct message me on Instagram. I'll read that. And we're not at the point where we're getting 1,000 people a day messaging us, so I'll respond.
Gotta start somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere. And definitely, I'll take all that into account. We need more material, especially material that's directed towards who's actually listening.
Totally.
Because I can come up here and talk about anything all day, 14 hours a day, crank out 3 podcasts a minute, whatever. But if it's not something you're interested in, no one's gonna care. So
exactly,
if you can make some suggestions, that'd be cool. Even with how we're setting it up. We're kind of having a conversation between us with you watching from there, but if you'd rather us be sitting at a table facing the camera, just anything like that. I mean, and there are a bunch of podcasts out there.
Yeah. Then it's cool. I actually really like and appreciate that because I don't think, and you kind of mentioned this, like the intention of a lot of the podcast is the longer form and the ability to get to know the personalities a little bit better and to dive a little bit deeper into some of the topical content. But also to create that engagement back and forth where it's like, we want to know what you want to listen. We don't want to just sit here and talk at you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think my favorite thing about podcasts is you get to see people kind of figure things out live, right? So you'll have someone, and I definitely have some ideas for people we can bring on to the podcast. But people, I'll ask them questions. They'll answer it. You'll see it in my eyes, the sparkle of, I never thought about it that way.
Yes.
And then the same thing for them. They'll ask me questions. I'll answer it. And it's interesting. And that kind of public discourse type thing, it's more and more rare these days. So I think it's cool to watch.
Yeah. Well, perfect end to what I think is a fairly successful first podcast, but we'll let you guys decide.
Episode 1.
Episode 1 is in the books. So, ladies, gentlemen, human beings in general.
Human beings.
Yes.
As Greg Doucette says, circles.
Circles.
I don't know if you heard that one or not. But
I haven't heard that one. I kind of like it though.
Resisting Misinformation with Dr. Jake. And today featuring Master Matt. I think we're out. Cardio, calories, and commitment. Consistency, all the C words.
Beauty.
All right.
Be good.
See you in the next one.